Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I am so thrilled to have you here today because we're tackling a seriously fascinating subject, the ancient science of mantras. But listen, we aren't going to look at this through some mystical or religious lens. Instead, we're cutting right through all those modern sectarian biases to analyze the pure, physical mechanics laid out in ancient yogic texts. We're going to treat this exactly the way the ancient scholars did, as a highly structured, almost architectural science of sound. So let's just dive right in.
To kick things off, we really have to ask a fundamental question. What exactly is a mantra? Now that sounds like a super simple question, right? But getting a straight answer today is actually incredibly difficult. And honestly, the main reason for that is widespread sectarian prejudice. In our modern world, everyone kind of tends to favor their own specific tradition. Different sects will claim their mantras are the only true ones, and they'll often just totally refuse to accept the logic or practices of anyone else. So that universal, objective perspective, it's been completely clouded by personal beliefs. To find the real truth, we literally have to bypass all of that noise and go straight to a foundational, highly respected ancient text to see how they defined it before all these biases took over.
So here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll cover the true nature of mantra. Second, sound and circular energy. Third, this concept of sput and its power. Fourth, the science of rhythm. And finally, the essential conditions for success. Let's get to it.
Section 1. The true nature of mantra. We are stripping away the mysticism completely by looking directly at a cornerstone manuscript called the Mantra Maharnava.
And honestly, the definition here might really surprise you because it is incredibly simple and physical. According to the text, the direct physical form of a mantra is just dhwani, which simply translates to sound. That's it. It's not magic. It's literally sound. But, it's not just any random sound. It is a highly systematic, rhythm-bound, and circular sound. At its absolute base level, a mantra is a precisely structured phonetic vibration. Basically, it's an engineered audio sequence.
In his book Antaryog, the great scholar Mahayogi Anirvan explains this perfectly. He notes that the specific word choices in mantras were developed by master yogis based on intense, divine states of consciousness. Now, sure, these words definitely carry inspiring meanings and really beautiful messages. You could easily write a deeply emotional poem with them. But their true greatness? It actually doesn't lie in their poetic meaning at all. It's all about their precise phonetic arrangement. The exact way the syllables are woven together is what actually gives them power. So it really helps to think of these ancient yogis less as poets and a lot more as master audio engineers.
Which brings us right to Section 2, Sound and Circular Energy, and how this dynamic flow actually operates.
Now that we know a mantra is an engineered sequence, we need to understand how this arrangement behaves dynamically in physical space when spoken out loud. And the mechanics work in a very specific three-step sequence. First, you have the continuous phonetic arrangement. This means repeating the exact same sound in the exact same tone and rhythm over and over again. When this continuous repetition happens, it fundamentally changes the nature of the sound waves. Instead of moving in a straight line, they actually start to bend, which leads us to step 2, the creation of a dynamic circle. The sound waves literally start to rotate. And finally, this rotation leads to step 3, the generation of an extraordinary energy flow. The sound transforms from mere audio into a tangible, physical, energetic force.
To really help us visualize this, the ancient text uses an absolutely brilliant analogy. A stone on a string. Imagine you take a heavy stone, tie it to the end of a string, and start spinning it around your head as fast as you possibly can. Well, two things happen. First, it moves so fast that it doesn't even look like a stone on a string anymore, right? It looks like a solid, dynamic circle. Second, that circular motion generates immense localized energy. I mean, if you were to let go of that string, the stone would shoot forward like an arrow, traveling incredibly far and fast. The continuous, cyclical repetition of a mantra builds up kinetic energy in the exact same way.
Let's compare this directly. When we use normal speech, like how I'm talking to you right now, the sound waves travel in a linear path. They basically go straight out, they hit an obstacle, and they fade away. But mantra chanting is an entirely different beast. By locking the sound into that continuous, repetitive rhythm, the sound waves become circular. They spin, exactly like that stone on a string, creating an extraordinary energy flow that impacts both the inner physical body of the person chanting and the outer universe around them. This massive flow of energy is actually what people often witness and mistakenly call a miracle. But it's really not a miracle at all. It's just the sheer mechanics of circular sound waves at work.
All right, Section 3, Spot and its power.
We're now entering the real climax of this phonetic power. So we need to talk about a highly specific technical term from the source material, spotthought. Mantras are incredibly short, right? You obviously can't fit a sprawling, complex philosophical essay into a few syllables. Because of that, the immense power of a mantra doesn't come from some long-winded explanation. It relies entirely on spotthought, which is the extraordinary impact and explosive resonance that the sound triggers within the surrounding environment, or what the texts refer to as the divine element. It is basically the audio equivalent of a massive chain reaction.
The text uses another fantastic analogy here, and is one we can all probably picture: a pond. If you toss a tiny pebble into a still pond, it creates small, weak ripples that just fade out super quickly. But if you take a massive stone and drop it into the water from a great height, boom, there is a loud crash, massive waves, and this vast, echoing resonance that completely disrupts the entire body of water. That massive disruption, that is fight. And it's exactly why something like the famous Gayatri mantra is structured the way it is. Its unparalleled phonetic structure is essentially engineered to be that heavy stone dropped from a height.
Moving on to Section 4, the science of rhythm and the flow of laya. If you're generating this explosive sound energy, it obviously can't just be chaotic. It has to be precisely controlled.
And that brings us to rhythm, or laya, which is all about the flow and intensity of the vocalization. The texts categorize this into 3 really specific methods of practice. First up is manasik, which is entirely mental. You're repeating the sound silently, entirely within your mind. Second is vachik, which is vocal, speaking or chanting it out loud for the world to hear. And third is a panchu, where you drop down to a near whisper. Your lips are moving, but the sound is barely audible to anyone else. Each of these categories controls the intensity of that energy flow in a completely different way.
But this precise science isn't just about volume. It's heavily reliant on pitch and musical cadence. Vedic mantras require incredibly specific tones. You have udatta for a high or raised pitch, anudatta for a low or unraised pitch, and swarita for a falling or sounding pitch. Plus, the Samaveda utilizes the sapta swar, which are 7 distinct musical notes. This precise musical cadence is absolutely vital. The texts actually state that getting this rhythm exactly right impacts not just the mind and physical body of the practitioner, but it literally alters external circumstances and physical reality. You're not just speaking words, you're essentially playing the instrument of the environment itself.
Finally, Section 5, Essential Conditions for Success. We've talked a ton about the cosmic and physical science of sound, but what is actually required from the human being to make this machinery work?
Well, it turns out, just generating the sound mechanically is nowhere near enough. You could have the pronunciation and the rhythm memorized perfectly, down to the absolute syllable. But to actually capture and harness that energy flow descending from space, the practitioner must be thoroughly prepared. The text states unequivocally that physical and mental cleanliness and overall competence are absolutely mandatory. You have to be a flawless vessel to actually hold this energy. To get there, the texts map out foundational steps split into 2 main categories. On the mental side, you've got yama, niyama. These are strict disciplines for mental purification and ethical refinement. Then on the physical side, you have asam pranayama, which involves specific physical postures and breath regulation to ensure your body is in total order. The source text is crystal clear on this. If you do not complete these foundational, preliminary steps to purify the mind and body, it is completely impossible to enter higher energetic states like pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, or samadhi. You absolutely have to build the foundation first.
But here is the kicker. Even if you somehow master all of those physical and mental disciplines, there's one final, ultimate condition. The text delivers this incredibly powerful, kind of blunt metaphor. A lifeless body, no matter how much it is decorated, yields nothing. What they mean here is that if you lack shraddha, which translates to profound faith, emotion, and active mental engagement, your practice is completely dead. Think about it. A skeptical or highly distracted person could perform the longest, most painful, and perfectly pronounced chanting rituals for years, and it would be absolutely useless. Without shraddha, you're literally just putting makeup on a corpse. Emotion and intention are the essential spark that ignites the whole phonetic engine.
And that actually brings us to the end of our breakdown today, leaving us with a final, pretty provocative thought to reflect on. If you ever engage with these ancient practices, or really any practice, ask yourself, are you just repeating words, or are you actively bringing the mechanics of sound to life? The next time you hear a chant, ask yourself, is this just a nice song, or is it an engine waiting for a spark? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope you found this breakdown as absolutely fascinating as I did. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll see you next time.